Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Nelson from Central Florida. It's the 26th of June, 2025, and it's 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you for being here. Let me know where you're watching from. I already see a bunch of names here. Sandy from Florida. I see Cheryl, Brian, where pigs fly farm. Funny name. Tommy Jordan, Feral Grandma, Carnivore Lake Life, and I don't see one of our regulars in the chat because she's on screen. uh, and I'm gonna say a couple of things before we introduce Aimee. Let me take a deep breath. I need it. So I'm gonna tell you what has happened to me in the past few weeks. A few months ago, I came from one of the meetups. Septic tank was broken. It took a couple of months for permits and things. Finally, was replaced yesterday. My air conditioner broke last week. It was quickly fixed. My brother-in-law's AC tech. He came, fixed it. It was a capacitor. 3 days later, the air conditioner breaks down again. It's something else. Couldn't get the part for 2 days. Yesterday, so I had a sauna in my house. Basically, the whole house was sauna for almost 3 days. Finally, yesterday, we get the parts. He fixed it. Finally, at some point during the night, it was cool, okay. Uh, just 2 hours ago, this is why prescription medications are so risky. Just 2 hours ago, I'm walking into a pharmacy and I get hit by a car. My body gets hit by a car. It wasn't that I was driving. Uh, she was backing up from a parking space, obviously didn't look behind. And so it was a small tap. I'm not injured. I'm okay. I think I'm not injured, but you know how things are. You have an accident 2 or 3 days later, that's when you have the pain comes out. But because I was in a hurry, thinking they were going to close the pharmacy for lunch, which they normally do, it was just 5 minutes to one. So I said, I didn't even. She looked back. Oh, I didn't see you there. Well, of course you didn't see me. You almost ran me over because you were not looking. And in between the move, because we went to sleep to our house, to our son's house, I misplaced my iPhone stand. And I'm traveling tomorrow to Boston. So I ordered one and it just arrived uh, in the mail. And all that to say that the universe, God, whatever you want to say, has sometimes a way to tell you things. With the iPhone stand that I got, there was a little card inside that said, "See the good in every perspective." Oh, I needed that. 'Cause, uh, I've had a few days where things don't seem to be working out the best way. And sometimes messages like that, they probably don't know what it's meant for me. But I'm glad I'm glad I opened it just now. All right. So we have Aimee Perrin, Aimee Fields Perrin, like she has in the screen. She's one of my favorites. One of the reasons is because I love to manage diabetes and I love even more to reverse diabetes. Now, today we're going to talk about type 1 diabetes. There is still, after many years, we've been trying, researching for ever since we came up with the knowledge of at least how the type 1 diabetes starts. A lot of good research in the past several years. but we still don't know how to cure it completely. And so with type 1, which is very different from type 2, and we can explain a little bit more later. Obviously, uh, Aimee and other type 1 diabetics don't produce enough insulin. And if they didn't use insulin, they would literally die. Insulin is uh, a master hormone, and it's essential for life. If you don't have it, you die. That's the bottom line. So you do have to supplement. I believe you've mentioned you do have very, very, very small amount of production, and obviously you need, it's vital for you to have uh, the insulin. If you look in the description of the YouTube where you're watching, I don't know if this comes out on the Instagram, but let me read the introduction to Aimee. She's a type 1 diabetic for 55 years. She's been carnivore now for 7 years, or almost 7 years. She has experimented with different carnivore forms trying to lower insulin needs. Her insulin includes her routine includes walking 10 miles a day as well as body weight exercise and sunshine. Uh, so Aimee, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. You
I
know,
hope you're having a better day than me.
I am, but that happened to me too. Cause I walk to grocery stores all the time, so I'm always on foot. And I was at this. It was a butcher shop in my town, and it's probably about 2 miles from my house. But I walked there, and I walk with my dog. He's a miniature poodle, and he's in a stroller. So then when I go to the grocery, I can put the groceries underneath him, in the whatever the compartment, and then I have a way to get my groceries home. So I was in the parking lot leaving, and I have to watch my language. This really big truck backed up right into me as I was bending down to see if my puppy was okay, and knocked both of us over. It was scary, but like you, I wasn't injured because it was, coming from a stop and it was very slow, but it was still scary. It was still frightening. And I texted my kids right away, and because I think they worry about their old mom on the side of the road, because I walk everywhere trying to get my 10 miles in. But I was fine too. But, life, it's an adventure, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm going to a pharmacy in a hurry because I gotta be here for you at 3, and uh, but I had to go and get a prescription medication for my wife who's in Boston. She's in Massachusetts, not in Boston specifically. But I gotta take it to her tomorrow, so I'm in a hurry to go in. So she hits me. I immediately assess my body. I don't have any pain, so I said something to her, and I was not trying to be rude. I may have sounded rude, but I just walked in, didn't take her information or anything. And I have worked in personal injury, seeing patients who have had slip and falls and car accidents. I know exactly what I should have done and didn't do it because the pharmacy was going to close.
Right,
So
right.
when I come out, I'm texting all my kids and my wife, who's in Massachusetts, letting them know. My first thing was, I am okay, I have no injury, then proceeded to
Right.
explain what happened to me. So as I'm doing that, I'm convinced maybe I should go back in. It was a big box store, had 6 cameras pointing, and this car was the very first in the line where the cameras are pointing at. So I went, and um, the security person was gonna uh, email me to see if they had seen the the license plate. Uh,
I gotta open
so
my door. It's really hot in my house. Wait a minute. Okay, that's better. Well, I sympathize with your air conditioning. We don't have air conditioning in Maine. Well, a lot of us don't. I don't. I have a fan.
well, remember, I lived 8 years in Massachusetts, and uh, most houses are built with heat. All of them are built with heat,
Right.
but they are not built with air conditioning
No, but I did
normally.
grow up. I did grow up in Louisiana, so I know what
Ah,
it's like. So I
yeah.
know, and I know
Well,
the Florida heat, so I get it. But
and
in
this with this heat wave, of course, I was the past couple of days that I've been here. I've been literally sweating. At the end of a live, my shirt is ready to go into the hamper because it's all wet.
Yeah. Well, you know what though? On Carnivore, I am sweating more, but I'm not feeling as uncomfortable when I get really hot. Because we had a heat wave. It's cool today, but the last 2 days have been very hot. And I have a
Yeah.
walking pad. If I can't walk enough outside to get my 10 miles, I'll walk on my walking pad. And I was dripping. I was afraid I was going to trip and fall because there was water under my feet,
So
or not water. There was sweat under my
thank
feet.
God
But
I do sweat a lot less on carnivore. Definitely.
well, I sweat more. I sweat more on Carnivore, but I don't feel as bad from the heat because I used
All right.
to. I mean, I'm 70 and I'm older than both you and Dr. Kiltz before there was history. 70 isn't really that old, though. I am
No,
realizing,
it's not.
if you
I
make it, and actually, I'm
you
going to be 71 next in July, so
in July. July what?
29.
Okay. So
So, do you want me to
what?
tell a little of my history or something?
Give us a few minutes of your history. You know about your type 1 diabetes and when you change your diet, but uh, you also, Dr. Bursting, his book, and
Right. I
because
was
you
going to
were,
bring, I almost brought it to the table to show it. But
uh-huh.
I
Go
was
ahead.
diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 16 years old after being pretty sick for a year. And then I was diagnosed, and they, at diagnosis, I was in the hospital for a week. They give me a meal plan, which was um, exchange lists, and they wanted me to eat 6 bread exchanges a day. And I'm looking at this. I'm 16. I'm not stupid. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, if I ate 6 pieces of bread every day, I would get fat. They don't know what they're talking about. So that was the attitude I had. Like, they don't understand about food. I'm not even going to listen. So basically, I never really listened to
The
about
diet,
diet.
but
About
yeah.
diet.
And
I mean,
by the way, I do remember those diets because you happen to have been diagnosed very close in the year. My sister was diagnosed in 1972 with type 1
with
diabetes.
type 1. So you and Dr. Kills had a sister with type 1.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
And
So I was diagnosed in 71. Wow.
71, so very very closely. And I remember, so that was I was only 12, but that was my first introduction to any chronic disease. It was, the experience from my sister and my mom checking. At that time, there was no glucose meters. It was checking
Right.
your urine to
Yep.
see if you had glucose or ketones in the urine.
Yep. And we only took 1 shot a day. So my parents let me manage all of it. They never even learned how to get a shot because I was
Okay.
16 and all I had to do was take a shot and then, eat something if my blood sugar went low. And a lot of people don't understand that in type 1 diabetes, you take insulin because your body no longer produces insulin. And we could get into the causes, but they don't even know the causes. And I don't know exactly, except that I took antibiotics for a year before I was diagnosed for acne. And I always thought that maybe it just killed my gut because it was so long.
And then may have been the case at the time
Right.
you were diagnosed. Based on the experience with my sister, we didn't know about antibodies against islet cells. There are 4 different type of antibodies that affect the cells that produce insulin in the pancreas. So that was not, I could, that wasn't something that you could even test for. Nowadays, I don't know what year that was became available,
I
but
don't even know. I finally got that test a couple of years ago, and I don't have any antibodies. So it's not hereditary in my family, and I don't even think I have the antibodies. I think I just got the toxins and that killed all my beta cells. And I have been actually, when I graduated from college and had time that I didn't have to spend on schoolwork, I started researching different diets and learned about herbs. And I read a lot of nutrition books, and I became convinced that you could heal. And I thought I could heal type 1 diabetes. So my inspiration, I keep reading these. I'm reading what's under the screen. Oh, okay. I don't even know what I was saying.
you're you're hoping to cure it.
Oh,
You were
right.
talking about.
So I figured that if I couldn't heal it, I could at least be as healthy as I could possibly be. So in case they ever got a cure, I would still be healthy. So that was my goal that I knew was a good goal. And in the background, I always had the wish and the hope that I could figure out how to heal, because I always wanted to heal, not cure. Because when they talk about cures, it's something that's, like they have to make, like what you sent me last week, they have to make a weird stem cell and stick it in your body. And you might have to take anti-rejection. There's all this mess with a cure.
Yeah,
But with
the
healing,
article I sent you, by the way, since you mentioned it, talks about a study where they are doing a transplant. So whenever you transplant, whether cells or an organ into someone's body, one of the things that you have to do is use medication to avoid the rejection of your own body of those strange cells. So what happens with those medications, anti-rejection medications? They're lowering your immune system. So now you're susceptible to a bunch of other bad stuff. So that is
including
definitely
cancer,
a downside.
right? Including cancer. So yeah, I'm not interested in a cure. I would like to figure out how to heal. But it anyway. But we're going to talk about management. So after 25 years of type 1 diabetes, I was 42. I had 2 frozen shoulders. My hips were frozen. My knees hurt. It took me about a solid minute to get up out of a chair or off of the floor. I had 3 little kids, and I couldn't run and play with my kids. And I modeled for my husband, he was a painter. And so I modeled for him, and I would stand out on the sea with beautiful white dresses on, and he would paint me with the sea and the sky in the background. I couldn't stand up for paintings anymore. When we sat down to watch TV, my head would droop. I could not hold my head up. So I was really bad off. Started going to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock because I was so depressed, because I felt so bad. And that's when I found Dr. Bernstein. A friend sent me an article about frozen shoulder that he had written, saying that it's all, I was in the medical libraries looking up what weird disease I had, because I thought I had another disease with all the symptoms. So I go on Dr. Bernstein's he actually sent, I got 2 tapes with his book wasn't out yet. So I got 2 cassette tapes explaining everything. Very low carb diet is basically what it is. And it's taking insulin for every meal and excuse me, and a very low carb diet, which is no more than 30 grams of carbs a day.
Now,
And
you
everything went
mentioned what you
away.
mentioned what the recommendations that you got back in the 70s on what to eat, which is still very similar today what the nutritionists teach, and included a bunch of bread exchanges and a lot of uh, basically very typical food pyramid. And the thought was, and I think it still is, just eat anything you want almost, just use enough insulin to counter the effect. But you have personally found out, and it's probably the case with every single type 1 diabetic. By the way, young teenage in their 20s type 1 diabetics are one of the most difficult patients I've dealt with trying to control it. Part of it is there's something that happens, a little bit rebellion here, and I want to eat whatever I want to eat, and I can just cover it with insulin. But that's very damaging to your body. So the life expectancy of most diabetic patients is a lot less than the average life expectancy. So
Yes,
go ahead. So you
yes.
found out Dr. Bernstein started eating 30 grams.
So in a few months, all my symptoms went away. I was fabulous. I felt great. My A1C, well, they didn't even have A1Cs until I finally got one in, I think, 1995, and my A1C was 6.5. That's, before anything. And they said, well, your numbers look great. I don't know why you feel so bad. You want to see they wanted to send me to an orthopedic surgeon for my frozen shoulders. They didn't need the endocrinologist. Actually, it wasn't. It was a diabetologist, because they hadn't come up with the word endocrinologist yet before 1995. There wasn't any such thing. They didn't even know that frozen shoulders was a symptom of high blood sugars. Anyway, then I found Dr. Bernstein, and I was great for several years, and I loved feeling great. It was awesome. But then I was sad because I wasn't improving. It was just like, staying the same. Yeah, my blood sugars were good. Yeah, I felt good, but I really thought I wanted to heal. So I found out about a raw vegan diet, and I don't want to use up too much time with my story. But anyway, I did the raw vegan diet hoping to heal for 7 years, and it didn't work. So then I tried the keto diet, and we got into that is actually when I discovered carnivore. So in 2010, we were going to go keto, and we were going to eat all local food from local farms. And we did that. It was a lot of fun. I did a lot of reading and research about keto. And when I was researching keto, I found Zeroing In on Health forum. So I found I found Charles Washington and Joe and Charmaine Anderson, and I think Lisa Wiedemann and Kelly Hogan. And it just was too big of a step. I couldn't do it. And of course, now I wish I had, but we did keto for 8 years and had several years of doing all local food, which is a really cool experiment. But then I found carnivore, and it's, the basic. It was in 2018, and the only carnivore videos on YouTube were Sean Baker and Michaela Peterson and Jordan Peterson on Joe Rogan. And that's how I found it. And I have been, because all my experiments with diet, carnivore is the most able to heal. So that's why I'm sticking with it. And I have, like, when I left the hospital, I was on 32 units of insulin. When I went on Dr. Bernstein's diet, it went down to 22 units of insulin. With keto, it was about 15. Well, with raw vegan, a lot of times during a fast, I could go a day without taking insulin. That was interesting. But because of the ups and downs, it just wasn't healthy for me. Keto, I was down to 15 to 17 units of insulin. And on carnivore, it's really about the same unless I do the lion diet. And when I do the lion diet, my needs go down to about 10 to 12 units of insulin, which isn't a lot, but I still have times when my blood sugar can go really high.
So people
And really
have a
low.
point of reference. Your normal pancreas production of insulin may vary a little bit from person to person, but it could be as low as maybe 10, 15, 20 on the lower side, up to 40 to 50 on the higher side. And that's still sort of normal for most people. So your pancreas produces, the rule of thumb I've always used, at least 20 a day. Uh, some people may produce 30, 40, a little bit more, or a few less, but no less than that. You do need it to live. Uh, so, what's your current use daily total amount?
Well, it depends. It's a little bit different every day. I take 5 units of basil, um, and then I take 1 or 2 units, 1, 2, or 3 units for meals. So I take about 10 to 12 units a day. But
Okay.
my last C peptide was 0.1, so I don't really make.
You make a
But
tiny little bit,
that means I
but
have
not enough.
one beta cell that's still alive. So I'm still working it.
So, I mean, almost you can almost discount that amount. You do need to have some insulin in your body. Have you found that carnivore controls your blood sugars? There are two things that are important in the blood sugars: is how high does it go on a meal, for example, or how low, because sometimes you get too low. But there's also what we call variability. If you're constantly up and down, that also is not good. It's less of importance, though, to try to avoid very high peaks and very low numbers. But what have you found? Do you think carnivore helps you control overall better than when you work keto, 20 to 30 grams of carbs?
Actually, not really.
Okay. So
Um, I
you were
have.
better on the keto, you mean?
No, I wasn't better. I think I'm about the same.
Okay.
Um,
So they're both having good. And I'm asking this on purpose. I don't know if there's anyone with type 1 diabetes. I did send it to two family members I have with type 1 diabetes, but they never watch this channel. Anyways,
well, I mean, I enjoy carnivore for all the same reasons everybody else that does carnivore enjoys it. Because I got rid of some things that didn't go away on keto, that did go away on carnivore. So I'm like, and I have no desire to cut up vegetables or even buy them. And
but
when
if you
when
i-
I'm
if you were talking to someone, I know you talk to other people with type 1 diabetes, and they don't want to do carnivore for whatever reason, uh, a diet that is not more than 20 or 30 carbs of carbohydrates a day, of at least whole foods, not refined carbohydrates or anything like that, but that is good enough for at least diabetic control, correct?
Yes, it is. And I still recommend Dr. Bernstein's book. And I do group coaching, and I do group coaching with type 1s and type 2s because we're both interested in insulin sensitivity. And some of them are carnivores and some of them are working on just being low carb. So, I know that carnivore, I, there's a lot, like I don't have any sore joints. My floaters in my eyes went away. I have so many reasons why I love the carnivore diet because it's improved my health even more than keto did. So, but the blood sugar control is about the same between keto, even Dr. Bernstein, or keto or carnivore. I actually am, it's a little bit harder on carnivore for real. I haven't even really figured out why. So my CGM, which where is it now? My CGM, I have I have a G7 Dexcom, and I'm looking at mine. It says I'm 68% in range. Well, that's not as good as I would like it to be. I would like it to be, 98% in range. But I'm very sensitive to insulin, so I have very few highs, but I have a lot more lows because it's really difficult to get that insulin dose perfectly to match your carnivore foods.
And I know it's a daily struggle for even you, who I would consider as an expert in managing the insulin and blood sugars. It is a challenge for a lot of people to manage that. And some people just give up and they just eat whatever and they start using huge amounts just to keep the blood sugar. Sometimes in their mind, and I know this because patients do tell me, in their minds, as long as I get, under 200, I'm okay, because they don't feel bad. They think they're okay. But uh,
Look,
as far as
I was so
complications of diabetes, they both have the same type of complications because they are all damaging the inside of the vessels. That's where everything starts. Go ahead.
I was so sick with a 6.5. The doctors want you to be anywhere under 7, or they don't even care if you're 7. A1C, and that was when I was my sickest. I couldn't even, I could barely stand up. I thought I was going to need a cane at 42. So I will never go back to that. That's for sure.
Yeah. If you have any questions for Aimee, please put them in the chat. I haven't seen anyone. There is one question that I'm gonna bring up in a little bit, but it was something. Let me see. I'm looking for
Well, I want to
questions.
say there's a lot of people with type 2s, and I want to say that it's really, we're dealing with the same thing. You want to get as sensitive to insulin as possible. So,
Yeah.
walking 10 miles a day is great. I know it's a lot of time for people, and I don't have to work other than just coaching and stuff. So, I have the time to walk that much, but walking and eating carnivore and getting good sleep and doing all the things that make you sensitive to insulin, um, is what we all want to do. Dr.
Yep.
Bernstein lived a long life because he controlled his blood sugars, kept them at 83. His favorite number was 83, and he just died. I believe he was 91.
Yeah, he was
He
this.
just
He
died
just
a few,
passed about 3 months ago. I
yeah,
think 3 or 4 months
months ago.
ago.
Yeah.
All right. So someone happened to ask this, Lizzie. How long has Dr. Nelson been a carnivore? I want you to put in a guess, and I'm gonna give you a few seconds to put in a guess of how long I've been carnivore, and I will give you the answer in a couple of minutes. Okay. Uh,
So
Aimee,
carnivore, do
how
y'all
low
do?
are your lows?
Oh,
Someone asked.
um, well, a few minutes ago it was 48. In the my, but anywhere from low, which on a CGM it just says low. It doesn't go below 40. Low on a CGM is 40 or below 40. So I have
On
lots of lows that are that low.
on
Um,
that particular one is 40, but and the one I'm using, which is the over-the-counter version of Dexcom, it doesn't measure below 70.
oh wow. Oh, that would
Yeah,
be off.
but it is specifically says it's not meant for people who are using insulin and trying to manage their blood sugars.
Right.
They don't want it. Don't want the liability. It's the same company, same technology. Mine for some reason just stopped working. I usually put it in my belly,
Yeah.
sometimes in the arm where you have it, but
Well,
so
lows anywhere from a little below 40 to 65. My CGM alarms me at 65, but you can't really say, you know. Anyway, I was going to say how many. I wanted to say there's an app called Days Sense. That's why I put my glasses on. So I've been a carnivore for 2,418 days. But y'all, if you get Days Sense, you can put in the date that you became carnivore, and then you'll always know how many days you've been. Okay.
all right. So uh going back to the question, how long you've been carnivore? Next Sunday. So in Boston, I didn't tell you, I haven't mentioned this. In Boston, we are celebrating my 2-year anniversary. On Sunday, it will be exactly 2 years since I said, I'm going to do this. And someone mentioned, as long as my grandson, uh, he was in mama's belly when I made the decision, because he was part of the reason I wanted to improve my blood sugars, my eye, macular edema, and that was the reason. I wasn't chasing necessarily the weight, of course, being here, being this guy. I wasn't feeling as good as I'm feeling, like, being like that. I still have some way to go, but my uh, main thing is trying to control my blood sugars. Now, this morning I had some fat trimmings, which I usually cut, put them on the pan, basically almost render the fat, and I keep the crispy stuff, and that's what I ate. And I had some chicken. My blood sugars actually went down after that meal, which is always good. I do need to eat higher fat to maintain my blood sugars in good numbers.
Yeah,
All right.
I eat very high fat too. But I've actually recently decided I needed to eat more protein because when I'm on the lion diet, I tend to lose weight and I don't want to get any skinnier. So I've upped my protein and I've lost weight instead of gained weight. So I have to be really careful not to lose too much. So um, I'm now eating 8 ounces of beef 3 times a day with a lot of fat.
All right. So that's a pound and a half total for the day, right?
That's enough. Yeah, right.
That that sounds good to
It's a lot
me.
more than I
How tall are you?
5'7".
Okay, you're taller than me, Amy. You're gonna have to bend down to give me a hug on Saturday. I'm 5'6", a little bit.
Well,
I'm
actually,
almost 5'7".
I recently measured and I have shrunk. I used to be 5'7.5". I've shrunk a little bit. I'm about 5'6.5". So I guess I've shrunk a little bit. I don't really understand that, but
Well, it happens with
yeah.
age. With me, I lost half an inch after having back surgery, by the way.
Oh,
So, Amy, did you eat meat on keto?
yes, I did. So I was a vegetarian for about 25 years. Um, and then I was raw vegan. Oh no, then I found Dr. Bernstein and I ate only white meat with Dr. Bernstein. So I ate chicken and turkey and tuna fish. And then I was raw vegan for 7 years and nearly wrecked my health. So then on keto, we ate, all kinds of meat, but it was like a form of moderate protein, high fat, because you wanted to stay in ketosis. So, we were eating a small serving of um, beef or chicken and eggs and bacon for breakfast. I called eggs and bacon my vegan recovery meal. And I ate eggs and bacon for like many, many years. Well, the 8 years of keto, every single morning it was bacon and eggs. And then unless I'm lying, I'm eating eggs and bacon. And, I go back and forth. I'll do beef, butter, bacon, and eggs or lion diet. And I like lion for the diabetes. It's awesome, but I find it very challenging to stay on it. I mean, I can take less insulin on lion and I like feel really, really good on it. But because I'm not actually allergic to bacon or eggs or butter, I find it hard to not eat those foods unless I've made a commitment. Like June was a commitment to do lion diet to see how low I could get my insulin down. Um, I want to stay on lion, but it's hard. It's hard unless you have a reaction. Like a lot of the people, I just listened to Stephen Lash interviewed by Steak and Butter Gal. And, if he goes off of lion, he gets a psoriasis flare. So, when I get off of lion, I have to take maybe two more units of insulin. It's just,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Well,
I can't feel what it does to me.
obviously, a lot of people have heard Michaela's story, and when she tries to go, I mean, she coined the lion diet, right? The name,
Right? Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she it's not because she wants to do that. By the way, she's tried several times to add things. It just always ends up badly, so she has to go back to just staying within her lane. When you were vegan, was it more difficult to control your blood sugars?
Okay. So let's see. It's hard to remember. I do have it all written down because I kept a diary the whole time. I always write everything down in a logbook, and I could go back and look. Um, I don't remember. I didn't have a CGM.
Do
I
you
did
remember if Do you remember if the amount of insulin that you had to use was higher?
only slightly. And there were days actually, like after a 5-day fast, I wouldn't need insulin for a day. So I kept thinking it was going to heal me. That's why I stayed with it for 7 years. I kept thinking that it was going to somehow heal me. But I really am on about the same amount of insulin.
Question from Meg: did you get frozen shoulder when you were a vegan?
No, No, it was when I was just basic vegetarian with occasional chicken and turkey and all whole, like I've been on a whole food diet for 50 years. I haven't eaten junk food for 50 years. But the frozen shoulders started when I was just eating a basic vegetarian cheese and eggs and occasional chicken and turkey. That's when I had my frozen shoulders. And that's when I was
And
so sick.
listen, some people are able to go on a vegan diet and feel healthy and be healthy. However, it's very, very difficult because you must supplement. There is no choice in this. You must supplement several things. You're not going to have good quality B12 from your whole foods. You're not going to get enough omega 3s. And if you try to get it from flaxseed oil or flax seeds, you're getting the wrong omega 3s, not the ones your body uses. And it will use those from plants to build up things, but it's like getting a not so high quality building block when you're building a wall.
Well,
So but you
without,
have to supplement heavily when you're really a strict vegan. If you avoid everything else that we also avoid, then you can feel healthy, you can be healthy. Go ahead, Amy.
well, when I was vegan, I almost forgot what I was going to say about it. Oh, when I was vegan, I felt pretty good and I looked pretty good, but I was having things. So I was in my 50s when I was vegan, raw vegan. And what I was having was pains, like really bad hip pain and shoulder pain when I would walk or when I would sleep. You know, you'd sleep the first hour, you'd feel okay, and then you'd wake up with these sore hips and sore this and sore that, and you'd have to turn, and then you'd get sore that direction. So then you'd have to turn again, and you get sore in that direction. And I just thought that was how you aged. I just thought, oh, I must be getting old. That's what it's like to get old. And then when I'd walk downstairs from the bedroom to the kitchen, my knees would hurt so bad. When I started eating meat, after I stopped being vegan, I started eating meat. I I, I felt great. I had no sore anything. And so keto was definitely great for me, but it wasn't enough.
So there were extra things that improve with carnivore.
Right.
But both, I mean, you can, like I mentioned, even vegans can be healthy, but they have to really work at it. It's easier for vegetarians because then you can add the fat from dairy products, whether it's cheese and sour cream or heavy whipping cream, uh, kefir, yogurt. Usually you need to make that yourself. There's no good available yogurt, I don't think, out there. Um, Luis Villalobos, this is what I'm going to translate. For my psoriatic arthritis, he has carne de res, which is beef. I don't know what gordos mean. I don't know if talking about pork, but if he eats eggs, uh, his neck gets affected and his pelvis. Luis, try to eat only the yolks. See if that helps. La yema nada más. Uh, because maybe you're sensitive to something in the white. It might help, may not, but if it doesn't give you the same symptoms, then you can have egg yolks. Okay. Um, Sardines.
I wish
Yes,
I
I think.
liked them. I can't eat them because I can't get them close enough to my nose to put them in my mouth.
You
Unlike
don't
Dr. Phil's, I have
smell
that.
them. Just put a clothespin like in the movies.
Yeah, I don't like the way fish smells.
By the way, a few comments about CGMs. It does not hurt to put on a CGM, and
No,
they're
but
made it.
recently I've started getting my skin is starting to be affected, so I'm a little worried about that.
Well, you can put them obviously behind the arms, but you can also put them anywhere in your abdomen.
Well,
Uh,
except if they go bad, they won't give you a new one if you put it anywhere
they've
else
given
except the
they've given
on
me
the.
about 12 of them new ones,
Oh,
and
really?
I always use them. It's not a reason not to give them. The one you're wearing specifically says you could use in your abdomen. The Stello does
Oh,
not,
oh,
but they still they it's not a reason for them to. And trust me, because they don't last me the 15 days I supposed to. It just went bad. I still had 2 more days on this, or three. So they might not give me a new one because I'm almost 2 weeks. But every time, I think that has happened only once or twice where they don't replace it. They send me a new one, especially if it's been less than 10 days. I've had it. Now, I also wear them in the arm. I just switch positions.
yeah. Well, this one I can't show you because it's a weird. I can't. I
I
can't figure out how
Yeah,
to. But it's
I think I see a little mark there.
yeah, it's red. That was the way it was, and I just changed to this one last night. So I don't know. I think my skin is getting sensitive.
I still have to be careful with histamine. It makes my muscles and joints hurt. And that's why I was telling Lewis that he might want to try the egg yolk because what he's having might be a histamine reaction to the egg white.
And that might go away the longer you're on carnivore, because the first time I had a histamine reaction, it was from eating brisket at a smokehouse. And what happens to me, my symptom of a histamine reaction is if I bend over, my head fills up with fluid and feels horrible. So I can't do push ups or I can't do anything where I have to put my head down. That's my histamine reaction. And it used to happen with any kind of slow cooked meat. Um, and it's gotten a lot better. And now I don't react to brisket at a smokehouse or anything else. So
Lewis says, I wear
oh,
my G7 on the thigh. It works so good.
well, I might have to change it because the backs of my arms are getting a little tender.
I'm telling you, you, even you who don't have a big belly, I do have a bigger belly, but you'll find that there's more spaces for you to work on, and it depends on which side of which side you sleep on. I'm always on my right side, so I never put it on my right arm or my right side of the belly, but I have plenty of positions, 5 6, that I can put it in my abdomen. And then I have sort of three places I can put it in my arm, because if you put it now, you need to have a good amount of muscle there, and fat, uh, when you're putting it, because it's supposed to go into the intracellular fatty area. But thighs, even though I know people have used it and I have tried it, uh, there's no recommendation from the makers to do. But if Lewis is using it, having no problem, so that's great. All right,
So
we have a question here. Amy, have you read Walter Longo uh, book studies, etc., about your body making new stem cells if fasting for 5 days? Now, I do know that you have done some fasting,
I've
and
done a
Dr.
little.
Longo uses a fasting mimicking diet. He uh, works in studies, doing studies that relate to longevity. which is interesting. His last name is Longo, and he studies longevity.
I've done a
So, what do you
3 day
think?
fast. I haven't done a fast longer than 3 days. I mean, I did several 5 day fasts, but they were with juice. When I was a raw vegan, I did lots of fasting, but it was always a juice fast. But the 3 day fast last September was, um, it was pretty good, but I didn't really get any results. I've been chicken to fast any longer. It's mostly because
You
of boredom.
and you might not need to, but
I'm,
I
I'm
think
a little, I'm a little nervous about it. I don't weigh that much, and I think I lose too much weight when I fast.
like I
I
said, you don't have to, uh, but certainly, and probably I would, any type 1 diabetic, I wouldn't be suggesting fasting, except for maybe, you know, some people try eating once a day and they do okay. You need to eat 3 times a day, right?
No, no, because if you have your basal, this is really important. If you have your basal insulin, that's your background insulin. You take it once a day, usually during the day and then at night. I don't need any at night because of the diet I'm on. But so if your basal is right, you shouldn't have to eat. You should be able to go all day without eating if you've got your basal insulin right. If there's any type 1s here listening, this is really important. If you can't go your whole day without going low, then your basal insulin is too high and you need to drop it down. So that's why, as a type 1 diabetic, you can fast.
I have Carnivore Angel Healing on Instagram saying, "Great interview, Amy." Uh, I don't think I
Wait, who,
showed
who is that?
the Instagram comments here.
Who was that?
That
Carnivore Angel
was
Healing? That's Sally.
Carnivore Angel Healing.
Yeah, that's Sally.
And then I have a
Yeah.
Catholic Carnivore 64 also.
Yeah. Oh, they're all,
Uh,
those are my friends.
and
They'll be in.
Isimora.
I
So
want to.
Sally and Linda.
Oh, awesome. Well, we'll meet them all on. We'll see them on Saturday in Boston.
Uh, all right. I'm going to take this. Okay. I'm going to take these 2 questions and then we are going to be signing off because
Well, I want
uh,
to tell you about two
we're,
Facebook before we sign off.
yeah, I'm going to give you time for that. But
Okay.
please explain the basal. Someone wants to know about that. So if you can explain, what do you mean by that?
Okay. So, type 1 diabetic has to take two different kinds of insulin. They take a long acting insulin just to be alive for the day. So it just keeps your blood sugars even, hopefully, during the day, whether you eat or not. That's called basal. And then you have a mealtime insulin that you take when you eat food. You have to cover it with insulin. And it's a faster acting insulin. The basal insulins are very slow and they're, anyway, that's as much as I can explain it. So I have two different
So
kinds.
one is long acting, the other one is short acting.
Right.
Among the long actings, there are ones that last 24 hours. When you were diagnosed, barely they lasted 8 hours, by the way. The NPH, 8 to 12 hours. And
Well,
uh,
I still take NPH. I take N and R. R is for
yeah.
meals and NPH is my basal, and it works fine for me.
But in general, long acting and short acting. And like I said, there are some long acting that last 36 hours. Lantus elevimir lasts about 24 hours. Uh, then you
But
have
most diabetics,
among the
most,
short actings, you have some that are very rapid onset and some that are a little bit delayed onset. There's a lot of variability in the insulin, but uh, those two looks like you get them at Walmart. Are they
Yeah,
reliant? Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, look, there's a way to do type 1 diabetes really cheap. You can go to Walmart, you can get your insulin for $25 a vial, and buy their test strips too. Before I got Medicare, before I was old and got Medicare, I didn't have a CGM. I figured out how to get my type 1 diabetes expenses down to less than $100 a month. I've got a lot of, I'm thrifty.
So this question is related to what we just had. Louis, there is no difference in how to use them, uh, type 1 and type 2 or any. There are multiple types of diabetes. Usually you don't say, although type 3 diabetes is used for Alzheimer's, gestational diabetes, drug induced diabetes, other, they are just called, classified on the ICD-10 as other diabetes. But the use of the insulins is basically the same. You have ones that are very short acting, a little bit longer acting, and then you have the ones that last 8 to 12 hours and 24 hours, and there is one that even lasts about 36 hours. So the longer ones are the ones that normally we use as a basal uh, insulin. You
I,
have
I think they just want us to stay confused. There's so many different types of insulin, and
they
every
want to sell you something.
and they're the stupidest names that I can't even pronounce half the names of the insulins. That's why I stay with the old school insulin. It's easy. I'm not going to get confused. But they have Tresiba and then Basigur, which I don't even understand how to pronounce. And there's like 12 different kinds of insulin. You get diagnosed now, and you gotta like either do what your doctor tells you to do, and the doctors don't actually know that much about insulin. You have to. It's crazy. Insulin can be a very dangerous drug. If you take a little bit too much, you can die. If you take too little for a really long time, you can die. It's
I
it's a
I
crazy disease. That's one of the reasons I've wanted to heal, because I think it's such a crazy disease to use insulin that's so volatile and difficult to manage, and these little bitty kids are getting it. If I had known about carnivore when I was first diagnosed, and I had gone on carnivore when I was first diagnosed, I probably would never have had to take insulin. People need to realize that when they are first diagnosed and you know about the carnivore diet, go carnivore right away, because you might be able to avoid taking insulin for the rest of your life. It makes that big of a difference. And I actually know people who have done that. Right after they were diagnosed, they became carnivore, and they were able to get off of insulin. Many, many, many people.
All right, Louis. Uh, they can take both types. They can use one type. They can use three different types. That happen not often, but some people may do crazy things. Uh, but it does not matter whether it's type 1, type 2, or other type of diabetes. You may use both. Very often, it's a long acting, a short acting, even when you're using it properly. Type 2 diabetics, most shouldn't be on insulin. This guy was in up to 300 units a day.
I can't believe it.
I have, you know, I have to admit, I'm ashamed to say that, but I have to say it. Okay, Aimee, thank you for being here. Where can we find you? You help people. I see you. I see you all the time in Facebook. I usually don't even go into Facebook much anymore, but I see you in the groups, and you're always trying to help people. where can we find you?
So I am on Facebook and on Instagram, both as Aimee Perrin. So it was on the screen. And then my YouTube channel is Brisket Boomers. Um, and I'm active in a lot of type 1 diabetic Facebook groups. So there's a Facebook group that has almost 3,000 members that's called Type 1 Diabetic Carnivores. And you can join them. And we talk about carnivore and type 1 diabetes, and we figured it all out. Then there's also one called Healing Type 1 Diabetes, and that has almost 1,000 members, and I'm very active on that one. And then there's also, for people who've had type 1 diabetes for over 50 years, there's a Facebook group called, I don't remember the name of it, but it's for people who've had diabetes for more than 50 years. And I try to represent carnivore on there, and I do share about it to people. Most of the people are pretty set in their ways because they're even older than me. Some are actually younger than me, but it's fun to represent carnivore with that group of people because I'm starting to get a little respect for it, and that's an interesting process. But I'd love to get new. So I'm taking your new coaching course, and I'm very excited about it. I've been coaching for about a year, but I don't have a certificate, so I'm pretty excited about getting a coaching certificate. So that's going to be great.
All righty. So thank you again, Aimee, for being here. Keep doing what you're doing, helping others. I think, I went into medicine to help others as well. And it is a great feeling when you are able to help someone else improve their health. So keep doing that. You can find Aimee in those groups and here on YouTube as well. Usually you can find it in our chats as well. Uh, so thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to meeting you in 2 days. Okay. Tomorrow
Right.
I fly tomorrow to Boston. I'll be arriving somewhere a few minutes after 2, I think. And we'll be in Boston for the meetup for the following day. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. We are going to be talking to Adrienne Gladhill, and we're going to be talking about GLP-1s. So be there or be square. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.